coming up on Wrestling Life.
I never overlook the fact that performing is performing and real life is real life. You really have to separate those two things. And one day, a lot of that stuff that I talked about that's so wonderful about it goes away. And so it's important to still maintain your own personal values and continue the pursuit of self and personal development, because being an entertainer and doing all these wonderful things, it's not the be all end all. It's not really the pinnacle of life. For me, I think the pinnacle of life, as I speak to you today, maybe it'll change in a few years, is like being true to yourself and being true to the people that you love. And if that means walking away from a bad deal or something that doesn't make sense, I will happily do that 1,000,000 times over.
This is Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, the show that celebrates wrestling's past, present, and future with real talk from real talent.
Joining me on Wrestling Life today is the hottest and most dangerous free agent and the most talked about man in pro wrestling right now. He's done being a good soldier, and it is well and truly his time now on his terms. He is the author of Amazon best-selling memoir, Life is Fighting, a book that friend of this show, Chris Van Vliet, rightly describes as a playbook for perseverance. He's the artist known to WWE fans as Karrion Kross, and with his incredible wife Scarlett right along beside him, he is now back making waves on the independents as Killer Kross. We want Kross, and now we've got him, because my very special guest is, of course, the one and only, the undeniable, it is Mr. Kevin Kesar. Welcome to the show, Kevin, and man, what an awesome book you have written. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. So kind.
And did I say your surname right?
Sure.
Close enough?
Yeah.
So look, I read this book in 2 days. I'll just give it another plug there. Life is Fighting. I don't often read books in 2 days because I've got young kids and it's hard to find the time. But I whizzed through this book because it just really drew me on a lot of levels. And in the book, you describe writing this as being a long, painful therapy session. So why was now at the age of 40 the right time to publish your memoirs?
I wanted this published 3 years ago.
Okay.
I finished it before I came back to WWE, and the process of getting it approved was a bizarre one. And it's taken this long for it to come out. Why now? I mean, beyond that particular reason, I think that in order for a person to be really, truly, and sincerely self-aware, you have to be able to look at the worst parts of yourself with honesty and be able to talk about them and just accept the fact that that's really the way you are, whether you want to be or not. And so if you're going to write a book about yourself, it's not going to be a pretty one. So, and if as an entertainer, when you're in a public sphere, that can be really dangerous. You know, a lot of people like to feel like the way they view the world and the things they do and the way they view themselves is reflected among their environments and the people that are around them. And there's a discomfort in feeling alienated from what you might actually be like or being different from the environments you're around. So that's why I think a lot of people don't write these types of books, because they don't want to feel alienated. But I had weird moments of realization where I realized it's totally okay to not be a perfect reflection of everything around you that's going to complement the way people would like to think the world is. And the way the world really is very messy. Yeah. And I'm messy. I'm very messy.
We're all messy. And I think, anyone who's expecting a wrestling memoir that isn't what this is per se. It's much more than that. It's a book that kind of deeply moved me because it's filled with all these kind of life lessons that you've picked up over the last 40 years. When, as you say, you have been fighting life, throughout those 40 years, and you're really open and really honest about, marriage, about family, about faith, about exploring so many different aspects of life, and about the thing that really was important to me about keeping perspective. You work in an industry which is so larger than life and crazy, and you've struck me reading this book as someone who's remained very, very grounded throughout all of that. What's the response been like so far from readers and kind of going out on the book tour?
I've been told that people have found a sense of finding a common ground with people in their surroundings that they didn't necessarily have before they read the book. Like, they realized that we were actually more alike than they would have imagined. And then they began to make correlations with things directly in their own life, where they're like, I don't feel as distant as I did with these things now that I've read this, because they read similarities in the way I was feeling and realized that they weren't alone. I've had people howling, laughing at some of the stuff that happened, which was, if anything was going to come out of the book, I would at least want it to be that, if no one had any sort of philosophical epiphanies. But I had a very close friend of mine today, who I've known for years. I'll just say his name is Justin. He lives in Los Angeles, in case he hears this. Without going into his personal details, he said, I didn't discover anything new about myself, but I reaffirmed everything that I was certain about myself in my life. And I thought that was really cool. That was an unanticipated reaction that I thought I could get from someone reading my story, which I loved. It was sort of like a checkbox of confidence of who this person felt like they always were, and it was okay to be that way, which I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's so many different stories that, because I think we're very similar ages. Your kind of fandom in wrestling mirrors mine, and the kind of guys you looked up to growing up are very similar to me. There's a great story as a young fan that you had an encounter with a WWF star that would change your life. And that man was Sid Justice, the master and the ruler of the world. Tell me about the night when Sid became one of your favorite wrestlers.
Oh my God. It was like Stockholm syndrome. He scared me so bad I wanted to be a fan of his. So I remember him just always standing out to me as the craziest person in wrestling. Like, everything that he said was either behind his teeth quietly, and he would get so loud and it would come from his chest. It's just like this demonic entity inside this guy screaming through the camera. I got the same chills watching him as a little kid as I did if I accidentally changed the channel and realized there was a horror movie on I wasn't supposed to be watching, like Nightmare on Elm Street. I was just like, I want to keep watching, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to be watching this.
Freddy Krueger vibes.
Yeah, is this guy going to get me? A little kid. Yeah. Just a story from the book. He was at a live event, and I don't know where I got the courage, thinking maybe I could get away with it because I was so far away. Before the days of social media, talking trash when people can't get you, all we had was a few rows in front of us at the wrestling event, hoping they weren't going to hear us. But as a little kid, trying to troll, right? I get up and, I give him the middle finger. F you, Sid. Yeah, he heard it. Turned around and looked right at me and pointed right at me. I couldn't believe it. Like, how out of all of the people in this building did he hear and see me, and his back was turned? That's how scary Sid was.
Yep.
Title Run Toys Series 1. Dangerous Danny Davis. Wrath. Juventud Guerrera. Ernest the Cat Miller. And Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, coming to the ring soon.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, for me, it was Papa Shango. Papa Shango terrified me. Had a good few conversations with Charles Wright since, and still told him that as a 40-year-old man, he still scares me. In another of the early chapters of Life is Fighting, you reflect back on an encounter that you had with Eddie Guerrero, and it's unbelievable to me that we're now coming up on 20 years since the wrestling world lost Eddie. How did that time with Eddie change your life and shape your perspective when you became a wrestling superstar years later, in terms of how to kind of interact with fans and, be around others that looked up to you?
So when I saw Eddie, because I'd seen wrestlers all day, I kind of just charged up to him and started talking to him at the bar. But then when I actually had the realization I was talking to Eddie Guerrero, I remember I had this confidence to just talk to him in the beginning, but then after 25 or 30 seconds in, when I'm making direct eye contact with Eddie, and I'm realizing as our eyes are locked that I'm talking to Eddie Guerrero, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It was the equivalent of talking to Sylvester Stallone, or, you know what I mean? Or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or a movie star. Yeah. And then I realized I kind of went into shock. Eddie kind of carried the conversation. I was just answering his questions. And I left that conversation feeling even though we didn't talk about anything at all of great substance, the fact that he was just so cool to talk to me, and so casually. That's the kind of thing where, as you get older in life and you go through your own life experiences, you look back at that, like a lot of stories I wrote in the book, and you begin to feel differently about it. And as I've gotten older, I've just always thought that was so cool to do that for a young kid. He could have, not in a mean way, but I mean, he could have politely shooed me away. Hey, would you like to get a picture? Would you like an autograph? Hey, nice to meet you. Have a good day. He didn't do that. He sat there and he talked to me for quite a long time. All different kinds of subjects, trivial stuff like entertainment and comics and stuff. And I just can't, I couldn't believe it. So I've tried to extend, provided I wasn't, getting on an early flight or something or moving through the airport. If I meet people, I always give them the time of day, unless I'm having to catch a flight or, I'm running to an Uber. But I tried to be the same way. I thought that was a good example to set.
Yeah, because of course there's that realization that you are now that larger than life character to other people who've watched you through a television screen. You are now that superstar to them, and it's remembering, isn't it? I guess paying it forward in terms of what you've encountered when you're younger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You write in a book that we become who we are meant to be, but also that manifesting success requires more than simply wanting it. Tell me about how you've made your goals a reality in your life.
Well, I realized through working bodyguarding and nightlife work, once I was able to get out of the debt that we all get into growing up in the working class that we just fall into, and beginning to learn how to save. This is all before wrestling for anyone listening. I realized okay, I'm ahead here, and I finally, my middle 20s, I have a savings account, and this work, I realized, this work is always going to be there forever. I always thought I was going to be happy and relaxed once I got there financially, and I wasn't. And it was liberating and also so disappointing because I was I worked so much, and especially with the nightlife industry, I was working a lot in Canada. So we have, it's one of the most multicultural countries in the world. We have people from all over the place. So when it comes to nightlife, not everyone celebrates the same holidays. So for example, they don't even have the same New Year's as well, depending on their calendars.
Yeah.
There's people from all over the place. There's Chinese New Year parties, Serbian New Year party. There's just different cultures all over the place. So I was just working so much, people wouldn't typically think, oh, if he was a bouncer, he was doing bodyguarding, he worked Fridays and Saturdays. Like, no, the nightclubs and bars are open 7 days a week. So sometimes, there was a lot of work to be taken. So I put a lot of time into just trying to get ahead. And when I got there, I was just like, oh, this has provided me no form of relief whatsoever, actually, aside from financial stability. And I realized that I had to do that thing I wanted to do since I was a little kid, which is to become a pro wrestler. So I just, in terms of like achieving my goals and stuff like that, I really just wanted to be happy. And I realized that being happy was to have a goal in mind that there was some sort of sentimental purpose attached to. And then I just began to strategize on what the best way was forward on how to achieve that. I had to learn the skill set, and then I had to be in the right place at the right time, which very little of that is in your control. So now I had to learn how to stay healthy and stay ready and learn to adapt every day, every week to different social trends that actually change wrestling. Wrestling is ever changing. It always has been. It's a reflection of different social things going on. There's new things being integrated into wrestling all the time. It's a very interesting lane of entertainment. So, yeah, I just the way I wasn't always motivated, but I had to be disciplined. And the way I would reinforce my discipline is, if I don't do this today, I'm going to start going back to the work that I was doing because it's there, and I'll have to clear money as a responsible, accountable adult, and I don't really want to be there. So either you do this thing today that you don't feel motivated to do, or you go back to the job you never wanted.
Yeah.
So you better figure out a way to do this thing here right now.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, look, the unhappiest I've ever been in my life is when I was earning the most money. So I get it completely. It was a very disappointing realization when I suddenly realized that earning a lot of money brought me no joy whatsoever. Kind of throws your value system, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
In a good way. Well, look, talking about being in the right place at the right time, I mean, it clearly reads in this book that you absolutely loved your time in NXT. You loved how your character was portrayed and the creative freedom you were given, and how much of that kind of original vision that you had for the character was kind of born through by Hunter and the team at NXT. How different was it then to join the main WWE roster? And how hard was that transition from obviously being this unstoppable killer NXT champion to being saddled with wearing the helmet on Raw?
It was, I can't say it was difficult because there was no struggle really involved with it. There wasn't a choice to struggle. It was either do this or, not be here.
Yeah.
And my mentality at the time, as I talked about, was to try to make the best of it. Even the best of it was not good. And there was such a great relief in that ending and going back to the independents to just reinforce to people, I know what you guys wanted to see, and that was not my idea. So getting back to doing what people wanted me to do and performing under that guise felt very good.
Yeah. And then kind of obviously talking about what people want, all we've been hearing this year is these chants of "We Want Kross" and all these social media trending hashtags in support of you. What's that meant to you personally?
It's been really wonderful. It's one thing when you're given a creative direction and it lands with the audience and they're happy with it. That feels very good. It's a mission accomplished. When the audience is choosing you, when the equation was not formulated for you to be chosen, they had other people in mind, and the audience is saying, no, actually, this is our guy. This guy's great. We're picking him. That's pretty cool.
I'm Marc Mero, former WWE Intercontinental Wrestling Champion and 3-time WCW World Television Champion. I am thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Bad to Good. The inspiring story of a wrestling wild man chronicles the highs and lows of my life, both in and out of the wrestling ring. It's a powerful narrative of overcoming adversity and the importance of perseverance, no matter how tough the journey gets. co-authored with my good friend and award-winning journalist, Ben Veal. This is a story I've long wanted to share, and I truly hope it inspires you. I hold nothing back in this book, revealing the untold truths of my extraordinary life from my modest beginnings and my first boxing match to the struggles with addiction that almost consumed me and my evolution into the charismatic Johnny B. Bad. This book offers an insider's perspective on the world of professional wrestling and my journey as a sports entertainer. You'll read about my pivotal negotiations with Vince McMahon that led to the first ever guaranteed contract in the WWF and how that decision marked me within the locker room. I discuss the impact of my relationship with my then wife, Rena, known to fans as Sable, on my career. I also confront the darkest moments of my life, how I hit rock bottom and how that experience sparked my rebirth, leading me to become America's leading motivational school speaker, inspiring young people and transforming lives. Featuring forwards by my good friends Diamond Dallas Page and Lex Luger, along with contributions from Mick Foley, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and others who shared this wild journey with me. Bad to Good is a story you don't want to miss. Head to Amazon.com or WrestlingLife.online now to pick up your copy.
I mean, I don't quite think that has ever happened to me before. Not that I could think of. So it's very meaningful.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy, pretty special year in your career in many ways. And that's why I'm so grateful we're here today talking about this. I mean, we'd be remiss. We haven't really mentioned Scarlett yet. So I obviously need to right that wrong now. I mean, obviously there's a lot in Life is Fighting. There you go, one more plug. About your relationship with your extraordinary wife, Elizabeth, obviously known to us fans worldwide as Scarlett. I love this story of how you both first met because it really reminded me of how I met my wife 20 years ago. You write about how you started out just wanting to be her friend and because you enjoyed her company. And I relate to that 100% because that's how we started all those years ago. And in my experience, the best marriages, the best relationships are always grounded in friendship.
Oh, yeah.
What's it been like to go on this crazy up and down pro wrestling journey with Scarlett Elizabeth right by your side?
It's funny, I started my career essentially by myself, being on the road. I was by myself. You travel with your friends, party with your friends, you work with your friends. And I still did the entire time since her and I have been working together, but I always had like this overwhelmingly suffocating feeling of loneliness periodically when I was on the road, and I never really told anybody about it. I was with friends that became my best friends that I worked with, guys that I was strangling half to death on TV. People would never guess. Later that night, we're all looking for a restaurant that's open at 1 a.m. so we can sit down and eat together and laugh about the night and reflect on it. Or we're going to a bar in the back room and we're smoking cigars and chasing shots and, FaceTiming our families together. But even while that was happening, sometimes this thing would hit me. I felt very, very alone. I'm very attached to my family. I was a kid. Thank God growing up, I did holidays with my family. I have a big family on my mom and my dad's side. And I grew up around a lot of people. And I didn't realize how important that environment and that family culture was to me until I was removed out of it working and being so far away from home. So how that changed was when my wife and I began dating and we began working together. I didn't feel like that anymore because I felt like I had someone who I knew before we even talked about it. We were going to become family and we were going to start one of our own eventually one day and get married and all that. So that went away. And that loneliness that was always creeping around with me in this profession it's gone.
And you get married on a glacier, no less. As you do.
Totally normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, speaking of Scarlett, obviously, your arrival, your shock arrival at GCW Homecoming blew up the internet, as you knew it would. What was that moment like for you both, sharing the ring with obviously your good friend Shotzi in her match against Matt Cardona, and what was it like to receive that reaction on the night?
Oh, it felt so good. It felt so good. I'm not in any particular rush to sign anywhere, because I have more going on than people know about. I haven't let everybody know what I'm up to. I think it's information overload. I think it's okay to drop certain things here and there so people can keep up. And GCW was something that came together relatively last minute. The stars aligned for that. I happened to be in Jersey that particular day, so we did the commute over, and it felt good to be among the hardcore fans and to be remembered and to be accepted again back into the community, because the hardcore wrestling fan community is very different than the commercialized wrestling fan community. It's all one to me, but there are different communities within that one big community, and it was good to come back. It's all I can really, best way I can put it.
Well, I was there in Philadelphia for WrestleMania 40. That was my first ever WrestleMania I've seen live, after 30 odd years of watching them every single year. So technically I saw you perform live. Obviously you were a speck in the distance, given that I was up in the nosebleeds. But, obviously as a boy who grew up watching WWF, how did it feel to actually walk out and perform at a WrestleMania?
Incredible. There's like 2 times that I probably couldn't hide it on my face walking down the stage to perform, of what was going through my mind and how I was really feeling about it. That was one of them, and the other one's probably SummerSlam. Just like seeing that many people, in attendance. I mean, it was just incredible, man. It was so incredible. That's a moment you won't forget.
Well, look, my last question for you today, because you're a very busy man at the moment. I hope we can do another one of these sometimes and dive in a bit more. But the last question I want to ask you is about being true to yourself, because you write in the book that if you can't protect your philosophies and ideologies from becoming compromised while chasing occupational success in pro wrestling, I believe it's time to wrap it up. You strike me as someone who has always stayed very true to who they are, despite the pressures they're facing from others. How have you managed to stay true to who you are, even maybe when you were part of the biggest wrestling company in the world?
Well, because at the end of the day, as wonderful as all of this is, the adoration from the fans, the round of applause, the cheering, the roar, the "We Want Kross," all of that stuff. Even with the book, and the book has changed a lot for me in terms of how I feel accepted and relatable to people when I talk to them. I never overlooked the fact that performing is performing and real life is real life. And you really have to separate those two things. And one day, when I'm not an entertainer and people are not seeing me perform and I'm no longer doing stuff like this, a lot of that stuff that I talked about that's so wonderful about it goes away. And so it's important to still maintain your own personal values and continue the pursuit of self and personal development, because being an entertainer and doing all these wonderful things, it's not the be all end all. It's just a component in life. It's not really the pinnacle of life. I don't even know what the pinnacle of life is. Who knows? For me, yeah, I mean, it could be different for everybody, but for me, I think the pinnacle of life, as I speak to you today, and maybe it'll change in a few years, is like being true to yourself and being true to the people that you love. And if that means walking away from a bad deal or something that doesn't make sense, I will happily do that 1,000,000 times over. There is a price to pay for how much money you make in life. And not everything is about money. It's about principles for me, and it's about honesty. And I will always put those two things before money every single time.
Can't think of better closing words possibly if I tried. So just to wrap up, thank you, Kevin, for joining me today. Thank you, Killer Kross, for being such an excellent guest on the show. And I want to encourage everyone out there to pick up a copy of the brand new book. If I haven't plugged it enough already, it's Life is Fighting, available now from ECW Press. But I appreciate your time today, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for you and Scarlett.
We will do this again. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. That's it for another Wrestling Life. Thank you so much for my guest today. Thank you to all of you for joining me. Thank you, as always, to my brilliant producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions, for bringing Wrestling Life to life. We've got so many of these fantastic conversations in our archives, so please do check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And the most important thing of all, please hit that follow button, please like us, please tell a friend, and please talk about us using the hashtag WrestlingLifePod. So that's it for another episode. I've been Ben Veal. This has been Wrestling Life with Ben Veal. I'll see you soon for more real talk from real talent. Bye.